Welcome to Of Blades and Tales impression video, you foxy bastards. This is sponsored promotion, but it doesn't affect in any way my opinion of the product. Played the game for more than 5 hours just to get a general idea what it is and how it plays. Early access is now available on Steam with more features coming in future. Link is in the description. Of Blades and Tales is open world RPG with elements of turn-based action and roguelite. And I like it. The game is nothing extraordinary as it blends elements of everything you have seen in other games, but it does so nicely with good pacing, exploration focus, meaningful progression and good gameplay loop. Graphically, Of Blades and Tales is using isometric 2D pixelated graphics with minimal animation. Not a fan of cartoonish style and pixelated graphics generally, but that is entirely subjective. Didn't bother me here because of well done game underneath. Game is set in a world where humans don't exist anymore, so animals have humanoid properties such as higher intelligence, unlike some of you watching this video, and use of tools. We control a fox that sets out to figure out what is going on with ever-changing world that is becoming more and more dangerous. One thing that surprised me is that game has decent atmosphere despite being quite cartoonish. I have trouble being immersed with games with such graphical style, but the background music, very open world and difficulty that creates anxious feeling offsets my subjectivity when it comes to cartoonish graphics and atmosphere. Everything in Of Blades and Tales is very simple except progression system that has enough depth to make you think and plan what played character should be. However, just because it is simple doesn't mean it isn't meaningful. This is type of game that does simple things right, but with added character progression and progressive difficulty that truly challenges player, it ends up being wholesome experience that is going to keep you captivated. Combat, being challenging and all, uses efficient turn-based system that is seamlessly transitioned into from real-time exploration, and I'm loving the mix. In combat, player uses abilities that cost stamina or mana depending on the build. Every little thing is significant, be it simple knockback arrow from bow or dodge boost after successful sword hit. I love when combat utilizes positioning and movement like this game does. Having one square between yourself and enemy to fire additional arrow or making diagonal movement that prevents being hit by high damage projectile that could hit enemy instead makes all the difference. Dying is something players are gonna have to get accustomed to, and consequence is loss of experience, which is really going to make you think about next move. Gameplay loop and pacing are very nicely done. Meaningful progression doesn't come easy, so to be able to progress and survive, players are going to have to pick their fights carefully, use items that stun or slow enemies so the transition to new area becomes easier, come prepared for dungeons, and know when to quit to retain experience because gaining levels makes big difference for player power. Enemy diversity is decent enough during early game with aesthetically very different bastards trying to take you out, each having their own set of advantages and weaknesses. Weakness is mostly tied to damage type as far as I understand. Only complaint I do have are sometimes bad positioning of enemies too close to dangerous dungeons, like in case of Northern Cave, where a bunch of respawning plants shoot lots of projectiles that are very difficult to navigate through. Enemies usually don't respawn until player dies, which is important info for progressing through areas. Players would be smart to utilize camps for frequent rest and teleports for adding medicinal stuff whenever possible. Overall, I quite enjoyed the brief time with Of Blades and Tales. Game is nicely structured with good gameplay loop and simplicity of execution, but with added meaningful progression. Satisfying, simple and hard.
That's what she said!
Thanks for watching and check out the description if you want to help the channel further on Patreon and Subscribestar.